Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. Like I said, this is important, and like Lana said, this is also the lifeblood of our community. And water is life. Water is life, and I think that's just enough to say. But with that, I know Grand Chief Stewart Phillip would like to come up here with Jody Wilson, our BC Regional Chief.
Gelakasa, good evening, everyone. I'm really happy to stand here alongside my good friend Grand Chief Stewart and speak to you and acknowledge the leadership that's at the front table here today from Fort Nelson First Nation. Wanted to acknowledge the wonderful territory that we're on with the Coast Salish people, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. My traditional name is Puglas. My other name is Jody, and I come from the Muskama, Dowadanak, and Lekwitha people of northern Vancouver Island. And I have the honor to stand here as a citizen of my own nation, as a council person for Wewakaiy, and as the regional chief for the British Columbia Assembly of First Nations, representing all 203 First Nations across this wonderful province. And I'm really happy that I came here, or was able to come here today and stand here in 100% support of Fort Nelson First Nation. And I'm really thankful to have heard the presentations. They're really well thought through and educated presentations about the impacts in the territory in northeastern British Columbia. And listening to the numbers, and I don't have all the numbers in my head, but trying to quantify them, as everyone has done, is just unbelievable. And for me, and listening to former Chief Kathy, who I've come to know over the years, when she asked us to visualize the impact on the territory, I thought about my own territory. And coming from a coastal community, we're fishing people. We depend on the natural world. We depend on the fish that come from the waters for our very existence from time immemorial. And I can picture it. I can picture my own territory and how I was raised by my grandmother and those that went before her to know who I am, know where I come from, and to respect the territory that has given us life, previous generations, and recognize the fundamental need for us to continue our role as caretakers of our territories, 7 generations and future generations, recognizing that has kept us here today and will keep us there in the future. So I heard the words of my grandmother and knew where I come from, and recognized that the impacts on Fort Nelson and the territory up in northeastern British Columbia, Treaty 8 territory. We are all treaty people, as you say, and the impacts that affect my nation, the coastal nation, whether it's from a pipeline that's proposed or tankers that could destroy our natural world, to the impacts of shale gas development, the unknown impacts of shale gas development in our traditional territories on the land and on the resources and on the wildlife that walk among us, are unknown. But every impact in the environment, no matter where it is in this great province or in this country, has an impact on my territory. And the effects of my territory have an impact on yours. Much like the checkerboard, or whatever you want to call it, of resource development that's going on unprecedentedly in our province right now, whether it be pipelines or otherwise, gas development, major resource development within our territories is fueling this economy. And the economy, we recognize that there needs to be development, but needs to be sustainable. And for our First Nations, development will not take place in this province unless our First Nations have a say, unless our voices are heard. And I heard the voices of the Fort Nelson First Nation today, as I have in the past. And as I said, I'm proud to stand here with the unanimous support of the 203 First Nations in British Columbia that stand behind you, and the 600 plus First Nations right across this country that have unanimously supported this effort to stop development in our territories, or shale gas development, until the cumulative impacts are understood. And as I've heard today, that takes 5 years of data collection. And the reality that there are countries in this world, I believe, that have banned it, that have said no. And our country needs to do that and needs to look at the impacts on our territories. So. Like my friend Art, and for recognize your powerful leadership over the years, I invite the Fort Nelson First Nation to come to the BC Assembly of First Nations Annual General Assembly at the end of November, and we are partnered with the Union of BC Indian Chiefs to come and tell your story, and to know and have all of our leadership in this province stand up with you. So thank you for having me here tonight and for sharing your expertise. And I agree, Caleb, we are in an amazing period of change and opportunity, but change and opportunity will only come if our Aboriginal title and rights, including treaty rights, are respected. And from that respect will come amazing development for everyone. So, Gela Kasla.
Good evening, everyone. Today has been a very, very special day, a very important day, a very powerful day. I was digging myself out of bed about 5 o'clock this morning to get down to the UBCIC to get ready for the press conference. Fort Nelson First Nation honored us with their presence in our boardroom. And we get down there and we're locked out of our office. This powerful political advocacy organization loitering around the elevator waiting for somebody to arrive with the keys. But the press conference was very, very powerful. And as I sit in this room and I hear this story again, I'm just as upset and angered as I was during the press conference earlier today. But when I look around this room, I see a lot of familiar faces that I've had the honor and the privilege of knowing over the years. And when I think about that, I know in my heart what has brought us together is our deep love for the land and the water. That's what has brought us together, and that's what has allowed us to develop the alliances and the friendships that we've all enjoyed over the years. We started out with Harjap doing the opening, and I had the opportunity to go to the Council of Canadians, AGA, in Nanaimo. And of course, Maud Barlow is the president of that organization, and it was 900 people. And they were talking about these same issues. And the reality is the fundamental cornerstone is water. And at that particular annual general meeting, there were 2 awards handed out for the Activist of the Year. And I'm proud to say Chief Marilyn Baptiste, who is an executive member of our organization, she's the chief of Honeycoteen, and she's fighting the so-called New Prosperity mine proposal by Tazico, and that's an issue of water. And the other was a lady from the Blood tribe from Alberta, an incredible lady, one of the funniest leaders I think I've ever heard. She's got 5 or 6 degrees, and she's got a very cynical sort of sense of humor, and she had us just laughing all night long. But when I look at this group of leaders, what I see is a change. At long last, there's a change happening in our world, in our Indigenous world, and the change that I've seen, and I've been involved for over 35 years, is that long last we're moving towards a balance. When I first got involved, it was pretty much men who were leading the fight for our title and rights. And as we move forward, there's more and more and more women stepping forward and undertaking the challenges and the role of leadership. And when you see women organized around an issue, you know that it's a serious issue, and the commitment is there, the dedication, and that's what I see happening here. And when I listened tonight, I couldn't help but think of Haida Gwaii, because the situation, as many of you recall, in Haida Gwaii is Macmillan Bloedel was just basically clear-cutting the entire island. And the Haida people decided that that wasn't something that they were willing to tolerate. And so they began to organize. I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to go to their annual House of Assembly that lasted for 3 days. And we started out by watching the video footage of when the matriarchs were arrested at Lyle Island a very long time ago. 20 years ago, I believe, in that neighborhood. And it was very, very emotional to see those elders get up. And there was a great debate in the community about whether they should go out on the road, whether they should be arrested. And some of those matriarchs got up and said, it is my right to protect the legacy of my grandchildren, and no one will stop me from doing that. And that laid the foundation for the struggle. Where Macmillan Bloedel was defeated, there is now sustainable, responsible management of the timber industry. The Haida people have control over something like 60% of their territory. They are in charge of ensuring it's sustainable, it's environmentally done properly, and so on and so forth. I see the same thing beginning to coalesce in the Northeast. And as our regional chief Jody has said, all of the First Nations communities in this province and across this country support this fight. When I think of the Haida, you know, I think of Gujau. When I think of the coastal First Nations, I think of Art Starrett, who I pretty much had to carry around the tar sands there. In August, it was really hot that day. And I think those were some Alberta kilometers. That was very long walk. But the coastal First Nations, I think of Art, who's always articulating the issues. And with this issue, I think we need someone to represent the face of the issue. And there are so many meetings begin to take place down here in the Lower Mainland with respect to coalition building. I think we need some designates from Treaty 8 or from Port Nelson to be that face, to be that voice at the table, so that when we're in front of the legislature the next time, you know, we hear this again and again and again, similar to the coastal First Nations, till it becomes household information that people know and understand. And that's what this is all about. It's about reaching out. It's about supporting each other. Because at the end of the day, this is about all of us. That's what it's really about. It's about reconnecting with each other, regardless of where we may originate from. We all share this beautiful land, and we all carry a burden of responsibility of stewardship, and to ensure that we leave our grandchildren a legacy that was just as sound as it was when we inherited it from our grandparents. That's the responsibility we all carry. I absolutely believe that British Columbians and Canadians are beginning to wake up to that reality. in the face of the Harper government and everything that that government represents, and the blatant, shameless economic opportunism of the BC Liberal government. And that's why I think there's something very special happening. Just in closing, I want to thank Curtis for the song, for the drum song. I know that people were talking about what they could see, and I thought, wow, because I was sitting there and I was thinking of caribou when I heard that. You know, that's automatically what came into my mind. So I really want to thank you for your heart. Mike, Lynn.
So I would just like to close with a very important statement that was put out by one of our elders. And it says, water is life. Without water is death. Water is life. That's why we always talk about the land, water, and the air. Those things we need for our life. An elder. Masi.